Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how I got into UWC India, what was the application process and what I did back then. I also want to add that even though I got into UWC and also got a 75% scholarship, I did not accept my offer to UWC because I was already in Cathedral in Mumbai and I decided against joining UWC. But I did get into the college and it was an amazing application process. The whole journey taught me a lot. And in fact, there are some key lessons from that journey that I still hold close to my heart even today. So I thought I should make this video and share with you how I got into this college and maybe some tips that you can take away from it as well. So let's get into it. Alright, so first and foremost, what is UWC? UWC stands for United World Colleges, which is a group of colleges across the world that offers you an international education and that is open to students coming in for the 11th and 12th grade in particular. So this is when you're about 16 to 18 years of age, right after 10th standard or 10th grade, and you're looking to get an international education, international exposure, and particularly study the IB curriculum. So this is what this school and college is all about. What makes it so unique is that you actually study with a lot of international students because people get placed in different UWCs across the globe. So it's super cool. It's like you're growing up with and studying with some of the best minds globally. And so that has, makes a huge impact on its own. And also because they're a very liberal schooling system, you get to choose, from a wide range of subjects, and it also helps to expand your horizons because of just the way they are. They're very open-minded. Things are not as rigid and fixed, and you can do a lot of mix and match within your choices, but also within your extracurriculars. So let me just take you through why I decided to apply, what were the timelines, and all of the details. So I was in the 10th grade, about to finish ICSE. I went to the JB Pettit High School for Girls, which is one of the best girls' schools in Mumbai, and in my opinion, of course, in the world, because I love the school. And I was about to finish ICSE from JB. JB did not have 11th and 12th at the time. So I was looking for places to apply to. My first choice, even back then, was Cathedral, which is right opposite JB, and it is a co-ed school, one of, again, top schools in Mumbai. And honestly, my greatest motivation was that two of my best friends were also going to Cathedral, and it was our dream to go to school together. So that was the main thing, and along with the fact that Cathedral was really prestigious, and it was just like something that we all really wanted to do together. So that was my top choice. But at the same time, that my mom, who is an architect and design director, her boss at work, his daughter had actually gone to UWC, and she was like super excited. They spoke about UWC a lot, and so my mom was like, you should also apply, see if you get in. And that's how I found out about it, did a lot of my research, told another one of my best friends about it as well, and we both decided to apply. So the first thing is quite a lengthy application process. I think this is the same for most organizations, that the first step is the lengthiest, which is your written application form. And I remember filling it out. There were a lot of essays, there was a lot of creative writing, of course, all your grades, your prelim marks, all the information that you had until then. And if I'm correct, I think that this was a pretty early application, so I don't even think we had given our prelims as yet, as far as I remember that time. And also, mind you, this is like a decade ago. So this is about 2012, 2013, when I was in the 10th standard and was making these decisions back then. So at the time, we submitted our forms, I gave it in, I put a lot of effort into just answering those questions as meaningfully as I could. And I think what worked in my favor is that I love creative writing and I love self-expression and just, sharing with you how I truly feel. And I think that worked for me in the application because they wanted to see your personality and I was able to display that. And share with them how I felt about certain things. So I got through the application stage and I got an email at the time saying that I've also been shortlisted for the interview. And this I remember really well because the interview was an overnight stay at UWC Pune. So it was not just like you come for an interview and leave. It was, we're going to observe and watch you for one entire day, observe how you make friends, take in how you interact with people. There's a group discussion, there's an interview with the principal, there's like a whole bunch of interviews, alumni, principal, teachers, faculty, like experts in that field that you want to choose. Also like existing students just observing you, watching your participation in group activities. So clearly it is quite intensive, and more than anything, this interview changed my life, and I mean it. So I got shortlisted for this interview, and this interview was in April, right? So I had already started going to Cathedral because our a year began March end. So I'd already begun at Cathedral, but I decided, I'm still going to go for my UWC interview and see what happens. So I remember it was the first or second week of April that the UWC interview happened. And one of my closest friends at the time and me, both of us got shortlisted for the interview. So we both went. And my parents, luckily Pune is where my mom is from. So, we have a home there, and they had come along as well for some parts of the interview. So it was super, super fun. There were so many people that came for the interview. Like, I was just like, oh my God, like even these many people are the shortlist. So just imagine how many people applied. And we all felt really lucky that we, had been shortlisted. And then we were on at the campus, and we were mingling with all the existing students. We were being given campus tours. We had been divided into groups and subdivided even further. So we had like a group leader, and obviously me and my friend and I, we were separated. So we weren't together all the time. But here is one of the first things I noticed that I found so, so cool. At UWC, when I had gone, there was a group of girls that were completely bald. And I remember looking at them, and they were just walking around campus so confidently. And I think it was men and women both, but obviously what caught my eye were the women. And they were bald and beautiful, literally. And they were walking around so confidently. And I remember looking at them, just be like, why are all of them bald? Like, how did they all do that? And I found out that they had actually donated their hair for cancer patients, and as part of their, passion and their social outreach. So that's what they all did. And I was just like, I'm going to do that someday as well. And I had goosebumps looking at them and their courage. And it really stayed with me. That image, I will never forget, of those girls walking in the grass, just bald and smiling and having such a great time. And then many years later in 2020, I did go bald as well because I really wanted to. And my grandfather actually had passed away because of cancer as also. And so it was an important cause to me. And I'd also seen that as an inspiration. So I just felt like I have to do this. And so I did it. And that was one of my greatest motivations. But aside from that, we were divided into groups. We actually played a lot of games. We had a group discussion as well. And this was interesting because I think naturally for me, I like to listen to other people and hear their point of view and then share mine. And so it came very naturally to me. I didn't have to force anything. The school that I went to previously, we would do a lot of elocution and debate and share our opinion. So all of this was up my alley, and I felt really comfortable in that environment. And because it was 10 years ago, I don't remember the particulars about what topic we had and things like that. But it was definitely something around the current affairs of the time and what our opinion was and what do we think should be done in certain cases. And so it was really, again, interesting to debate and talk to everyone. And I still remember we actually had an African-American group leader that time. So that's what I mean. It was just international people leading the charge, and Indians of course as well, but it was a mixed bag of different ethnicities and nationalities. So it was really interesting. Then we also got to, they had a dance studio, which I was like, yes, I'm going to this college just because they have a dance studio. And I remember we did a Zumba class there because one of the girls was teaching, and I still remember that was a phenomenal experience. We got to watch some of them playing basketball, playing games. and all of that happened. So I think the first day when we arrived, it was more of these slightly more chill activities where they were, taking us through some things and like getting us acquainted with the campus. Also, the group leaders were really trying to get to know us as well. So I know for sure that the student assessment form was also important. And then I think the next morning, if I'm not, and we slept in tents. I remember this. We slept in tents that night. Like everybody had a tent allocation and we all slept in tents. So that was cool. So now comes the interview parts. So I had an interview with, I remember, the faculty. So it was the principal and some of the leading faculty of the time. And again, it was a really good interview. They did ask me some tough questions like, how do you differentiate between right and wrong? What are your moral values? What would you do if your moral values were broken? So very like character-oriented and personality-oriented questions. And they did ask me some subject-related things too, but like what subject would you take? What are you considering? What would you like to do with your life? What's your mission? What's your purpose? Things like that. But then I had a very interesting interview even with the alumni, and there you had to, they were like, okay, why UWC in particular when you can go to any other place? So I spoke a lot about the international exposure, and also I think how I like love having a multifaceted personality, and I feel like the UWC is an extension and representation of everything I've ever dreamed of. So that also connection came in. And the next most interesting round was called the show and tell. So we were told from before that you have to get an object that means something to you that you're going to like talk about and share about for a while with the committee who is managing that show and tell section. So I had actually brought in my knee brace because just 2 years before that, like in 2010, I had a knee injury when I was playing basketball, and that had led to a kneecap dislocation actually, which was a pretty serious injury at the time. And ever since, I had to wear that kneecap and brace for support. And I spoke about how for the first time I realized what it feels like to be physically impaired or impacted by something. And I spoke about how that made me realize that when I was limping and I didn't have support and some days I had to take a wheelchair, I realized the infrastructure problems we have in our country for people who are physically impaired and how challenging it is for them to do basic tasks and just to get around in everyday life. And it was so emotional for me talking about that I actually started crying in a very not to be like, look at me, I'm crying, but to say that this is so emotional. Like I have lived it and I can see how difficult it is because you have to be on bed rest for a long time and then you try to go somewhere and there also you can't actually do anything. You feel kind of like helpless in that situation. So I remember showing my knee brace and then also like just after a point just crying. And I remember they were like, oh, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just like passionately emotional about this because I feel like a little helpless and I want to do something about it. And then that got over. So it was really, and then we had a good positive discussion about it after. And they said, if that's something you really want to do, maybe that's something you can focus on. And I was like, yeah, through yoga and the power of spirituality and self-healing, like infrastructure, maybe I immediately can't change, but at least I can, like now I teach yoga. So you can prevent these injuries from a younger age if possible, and when it's not possible, of course we need to rely on our youth leaders and our own efforts to make sure that people can get around the way they need to and they don't feel helpless in these circumstances. So definitely a unique experience talking about that. And after that got over, I remember, I think my final interview, I'm forgetting again, but I remember the question that I was asked was that what do you really want to do? And I remember saying that I want to be in the spaces of like fitness and yet media and yet like just combine all my interests into one thing and integrate it. And they like for the first time I felt a little understood because they understood what I was saying. And it's really cool because like so many years later now, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I have my own company and we're focusing on fitness, health, media, and that's what I'm studying. And, my whole life is dedicated to that. So it's cool, I think, that even a decade ago, when I was 15, 16, I knew that I wanted to be in that space and that that would make a difference to my life. So I'm really like happy and grateful that happened at the time. And yeah, after that, we all came back home from our UWC interview, and then we just had to wait, right? So you have to wait for a while. And I think sometime at the end of April or May, we got a letter, like a physical letter, as well as an email saying that I had been accepted to UWC, which was, I was like, oh my God, because I know the acceptance rate is really low. And aside from just not just getting accepted, I'd also got a 75% scholarship, because remember, UWC is an IB curriculum, which means it goes into lakhs, and we had indicated that we would need help and support financially. So it just blew my mind. I was like, okay, wow. And I remember my parents were like, wow, you did it, like you got in. And then here's the caveat, right? I didn't take it. So I remember a lot of my relatives thought that, what are you doing? You got in a UWC and with a scholarship and you're not taking it. But there was a very strong reason why, and it's because once it became real that I might actually have to go, my dad felt that 16 is too young to be leaving home, according to him, and he just felt like I would lose connection with my home country if I, at a young age, decided to move abroad. And so he said, you know, we definitely want you to move abroad or live abroad for some time, if that's what you want to do, but go when you're a little more mature and you've built enough of a connection with India that you know what India stands for. And I remember that time being like, okay, I don't know if I fully understand, because, you know, most of my friends were going to IB or IGCSE, and I don't know if I got it that time. But now looking back, the fact that I've, you know, been able to have all these certifications in yoga, build that connection with India, now I know what he meant. Because when I went to London for my master's, I went there, and within a few months I knew I wanted to come back, because I had built that connection with India, and it felt like home. And London felt like, yeah, I'm here for studies, but that's home, I got to go back. So I mean, kudos to my dad. I think he really instilled a sense of nationalism and giving back to India at a very young age. He could have let me go, he could have, you know, said go ahead, but I think he saw something much beyond that, and I'm grateful to him, because I learned to love my country as well through that. And of course, each to their own, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to love your country if you choose to go and go to UWC or any other college like that. But that was our primary reason for saying no at the time. And yeah, I think while applying, it was all fine. And then when I actually got it, I was like, oh my God, is she actually going to go? Like, if she does IB, then she goes abroad immediately. Probably not. So I didn't end up going, but I did get in. And I thought maybe this is interesting for some of you that are thinking about it or planning for it or interested in UWC. So that's my perspective. I hope this video has been helpful. If yes, please give it a big thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Catch you soon.